Right, tonight's subject is the Aleinu Leshabeach prayer. Okay, Aleinu Leshabeach, and we're going to start with a little story. So there were three things that went up to Shamayim and had a complaint to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The herring, Aleinu Leshabeach, and the mamzer. Okay? So the herring goes in first, and the herring says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, "It's not fair." He says, "What's the problem?" He says, "It's not fair. They take hold of me, these Jews, they chop me up into little pieces, they mix me with egg, or they dump me in a bucket of schmaltz. I'm not even a fish anymore. You can't even recognize me as a herring. It's not fair." Kadosh Baruch Hu thinks about it and he says, "You know what? You're right." He says, "I'm going to make it right for you." He says, "I'm going to make it so that every kiddush in the world you're at. Nobody will have a kiddush without having a herring, that's it. And in fact, they'll only make the bracha of mazonos on the cracker so that they can have you, the herring, on top of it." Herring says, "Oh, very good. Okay, thank you very much." And off he goes. Next goes Aleinu Leshabeach. And he says, "Not fair." "What's the problem?" He says, "I'm not a proper Tefilah. I'm right at the end of Davening. Everyone's taken off the talus already. They've folded it up. They're halfway out the door. They're saying it in 10 seconds. They're already gone behind. I'm not even a proper prayer. I'm not recognizable even as a prayer." Kadosh Baruch Hu thinks about it and says, "You know what? You're right. I'm going to make it right for you," he says. "I'm going to make it so that you are the centerpiece of the Yomim Noraim. You will be in Musaf of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, and everybody will bow down in the middle of you. You will be the proper best prayer." Aleinu Leshabeach says, "Very good, thank you very much." And off he goes. Next goes the mamzer. He says, "It's not fair." "What's the problem?" He says, "I didn't do anything wrong. My parents they did something wrong. And why should I have to suffer? It's not my fault." Why? Kadosh Baruch Hu says, "You know what? You're right. I'll make you the president of the shul." So, Aleinu Leshabeach. Yeah, it's a good joke. I love that joke. Right. So, Aleinu Leshabeach. So, it is, in fact, true. It is right at the end of Davening. Everybody's halfway out the door. There you go. Thank you very much. Everybody's halfway out the door before they've said it. Or if they're not halfway out the door, they're already taking their talus and tefillin off, and they're not really concentrating. So, it's really something that we need to correct, because the Aleinu Leshabeach prayer is actually a very, very important prayer indeed. Now, we think of it as the last prayer of Davening, right? It's the last prayer of Shachris. It's the last prayer of Mincha. Yeah. What, you don't say Aleinu?
Yeah. After the laning. Yeah.
Well, Shiur Shel Yom really belongs before. Yeah. They say that before Aleinu. Aleinu is the last prayer.
I thought you were.
We say Shiur Shel Yom and the Karbonos before Aleinu. Aleinu is the last prayer.
I thought you were saying.
No, Nusach Ashkenaz says Shiur Shel Yom afterwards, but actually Aleinu is meant to be the concluding prayer.
Yeah, but I thought you were saying Shachris on Shabbos. You don't say Aleinu after Shachris.
What are you talking about?
Shachris on Shachris
After Musaf.
But I said
after Shachris. Okay, we'll come to that. All right, you're right for once. You're right. Shachris on Shabbos we don't say Aleinu, but you'll see why in a minute. So at the end of a mincha we say Aleinu. The end of Ma'ariv, we say Aleinu. So we think of it as the concluding prayer of the tefilot, do we not? Yeah, that's how it appears. I'm going to suggest to you, and this is not my own idea, this is from Rav Ezra Bick, which I think is a brilliant idea. And I'm going to turn it on its head, that the Aleinu Leshabeach prayer is not the concluding prayer of the tefilot. It is the prayer that we take out with us into the rest of our day, right? We think of it, I don't know about you, I certainly think of it as Aleinu, that's it. It's the end of the prayers. That section of the day, Aleinu belongs to the prayers, and then off we go and do whatever we're going to do. What Rav Bick is suggesting is something really quite radical. And that Rav Bick, he's one of the rabbis from the Gush. And a lot of his material, I use a lot of his material for this shiur. It's got a K on the end, Paul.
We know.
So he's suggesting something completely radical, and that is that this is a prayer not that belongs to the end of davening, but belongs to the beginning of the rest of the day. And we'll go through it, and you'll understand when we go through it what I mean by that. But first of all, before we do that, I want to go through a bit of history of Aleinu, because there's all sorts of interesting things about Aleinu. Who has got a singers? Good. What editions do you have?
I have very old. Quite an old
Okay.
edition.
Paul's got a very old edition. Yeah.
And the latest one.
The latest. Excellent. And it's wonderful. We've got all the singers' prayer books you could possibly want. Okay. We've also got a Rinat Yisrael. And what have you got there, Leslie? You've got a singers? Yeah. Leslie's also got a singers. Okay. You've got an art scroll there, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Right. So we've got all sorts here. And Johnny's got an art scroll as well. Right. So, Aleinu Leshabeach. What's its origin? Where does it come from? Any suggestions? Who wrote it?
In the Avoda, isn't it?
Rosh Hashanah.
The Avoda.
Okay, it is in the Rosh Hashanah Avoda. You are right. That wasn't my question, though. The question was, who wrote it?
Sanhedrin.
It doesn't say here.
Huh?
It's
Okay, Frank says various people wrote it.
It's very old.
It's very old. Okay. Well, the first suggestion is that it was written by Yehoshua bin Nun when he crossed over the Jordan. Now, there is no proof for that whatsoever. There is no scriptural proof for that. It's said by Chazal. I don't know if it's said by Chazal even, but it is definitely something which is said that it was written by Yehoshua bin Nun.
The commentary here said it was the two different paragraphs were written at different times.
Yes, there are two different paragraphs there, and they say two completely different things. They are complementary, as we will see, but they say two completely different things. But we'll come to that, Paul. Let's just talk about the history. So it is said to have been written by Yehoshua bin Nun. I don't think it really was written by Yehoshua bin Nun, but when we understand the meaning of this prayer, it will be seen why people attributed it to Yehoshua bin Nun when he went into the over the Jordan, and we'll come back to that. So that's the first suggestion, that it was written by Yehoshua bin Nun. The first time we see it, actually, is very old, and is in the Gemara. Okay, it is mentioned in the Gemara as Hannah said, part of the liturgy for Rosh Hashanah. Okay, that's the first time we see Aleinu. Aleinu started off as not in our joke that Kodesh Baruch Hu made it as a consolation prize, but it started off in the Rosh Hashanah davening, and later was adopted into everyday davening, and we'll come back to when it was adopted in a minute. So we'll start with the original the original placement of Aleinu was in the Rosh Hashanah davening. Now, where is it in the Rosh Hashanah davening? Can anybody remember?
Musaf.
In Musaf, yes.
Musaf.
It's not in the Avodah. It is in Musaf.
A repetition of the Shemona Esra.
It is.
Malchuyot.
It's in Malchiot. Yes, correct, Hannah. It is in Malchiot. It's both in the silent Shemona Esra and in the repetition, and it's in Malchiot. Okay, what is Malchiot? Kingship. It's the verses. You'll remember that on Rosh Hashanah davening, Musaf of Rosh Hashanah is the longest Amida that there is.
Yeah.
Okay, because there are extra bits in it. There are 3 extra sections over and above what we normally have. What are those 3 extra sections? Zichronot, Malchiot, and Shofrot. Okay, those are the 3 sections of the Amida in the Rosh Hashanah davening. Okay, now in the section of Malchiot, comes the Aleinu Leshabeach prayer. And that is where it first came from. That's where it was. It first appears in a manuscript of the Rosh Hashanah liturgy by the 3rd century Amora Abba Aricha. Okay, and he included it in the Rosh Hashanah Musaf as a prologue to the verses about HaKadosh Baruch Hu being the king. Now, let's go through the Aleinu Leshabeach prayer and we'll see why it fits there. Let's just go through the translation, the simple translation. Aleinu Leshabeach. Aleinu.
It is upon us.
It is upon us. In other words, it is our obligation.
Yeah,
And we use that in modern Hebrew as well. When you want to say, it's our obligation to do something, we have to do something. You say, Aleinu, it is on us to do it, okay? Aleinu Leshabeach, we have an obligation or a duty, Leshabeach, to praise, La'adon HaKol, to the master of everything. Just translating now, you've all got the translation there, you can follow it. Latet Gdula Leyotzer Bereshit, to give or to ascribe greatness, Leyotzer Bereshit, to the one who created
the beginning,
the Bereshit, the beginning of the world. Shelo Asanu, he did not make us like Goyei Haratzot, like the nations of the world. In other words, what are we saying in this first bit? We are thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu for making us different to the Goyim.
That's how I feel when I go to
the supermarket.
No, like when I went to the museum today.
Why?
Because we're different.
We are different. Let's carry on. Velo samanu, and he did not make us or place us like mishpachot hadama, the families of the world. He didn't make us like all the other goyim. We're different.
Maybe that's our problem.
Wait. Shalo sam chalkenu kahem. He did not place our portion in the world kahem, like theirs. In other words, we've got a different portion. V'gor aleinu, and our fate, if you like, kachol hamonam, like all their multitudes. In other words, again, all of these things are saying we are praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu for making us different. This is a prayer that says the Jew is different from the rest of the world, right?
And that's why
We're not all in the image of God, though, I thought.
All in the image of God. All people are in the image of God, but we have been made differently. We have been made differently. Now, the next bit is very much part of the history of Aleinu Leshabeach. In some places, this is next sentence isn't there at all. If you look in the old singers, Paul,
yes,
you don't have the words Shehem Mishtachvel Vehever Verik Umit Palalim El Elo Yoshia. You don't. And in the new singers, no, not in the new singers, in the very new Sax Siddur of the Koren, it is there. Okay, well, it was written. It was edited by Jonathan Sachs. In the singers, it's not there, but in the Koran, it is, and in the Art Scroll, it's there as well. Yeah.
In the Art Scroll, it's in brackets, Johnny.
Yes, Art Scroll has it in brackets. Is that right? Yeah. You got it in brackets, Johnny.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, why is it in brackets? We'll come back to it. Okay. Well, let's just do the translation, but we'll come back to why it's missing from the singers and why it's in brackets in the Art Scroll.
Very quickly, if it's missing, when did it come in?
I'll tell you all about that in a minute. I just want to get through the translation first so that we can understand what the prayer means, and then we'll come back to the nitty-gritty of it. Right. So what have we said so far? We've basically said we're praising God that we're not like the Goyim. Shehem mishtachavim, they bow down, lehevel, to vanity, emptiness, varik. Rik is emptiness as well, from the same word as rake, okay? To emptiness. Umit palalim, and they pray El, to a God, lo Yoshia, who does not save, right? Va'anachnu, but we, korim, bend down, umishtachavim, and bow, umodim, and thank, lifnei melech malchei malachim, in front of the King of Kings. HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shahu noteh shamayim. He stretches out the heavens. V'yoseid aretz, and establishes the foundation of the earth. Umoshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al. And this moshav, the seat yikaro of his
Dearness.
splendor,
Splendor, yeah.
b'shamayim mima'al, is in the heavens above.
Yeah, yeah.
In contrast to that hevel v'rik, that emptiness and nothingness that the goyim bow down to. Ushchinat uzo, and the presence of his strength, begavei maromim, is in the heavens above. Hu Eloheinu,
He is our
he is our God.
God. En od.
Ein od,
There's no
there
other.
is no other. Emet malkeinu, truth, it is true that he is our king. Efes zulato, there is nothing apart from him. Kakatuv b'torato, as it is written in his Torah. V'yadata hayom, and you will know on that day. V'hashivota el levavecha, and you will
Bring it back.
bring it back to your heart. Ki, that Adonai, hu Elohim, God is the God. Bashamayim, in the heavens, mima'al, above, va'al haaretz mitachat, and on the earth below, ein od.
This is unconditional. This is
Right? So
unconditional.
what does that paragraph tell you?
Wow.
There is no equivocation there, is there?
No.
That is about as much as you could get to being the perfect prayer for Hashem. We are thanking Hashem for making us not like the Goyim. We acknowledge HaKadosh Baruch Hu as the one and only Ein Od. There is no other apart from him. This is a declaration of faith. Okay?
I always thought this should be the second paragraph, not the first one.
Okay, we'll come to the second paragraph in a minute. So the first paragraph is about our recognition that God is the King, God
Infallible,
is God,
infallible.
and there is Ein Od, there is no others.
Yeah.
Okay, and it is very personal to the Jewish people. What do you say, Barbara?
Why isn't it earlier on then?
Okay, why isn't it earlier on? Okay, and that is what Rabik's point is. I'll come to answer your question
No, I
when
understand
we've
that.
done the second,
But why do we bow by national current?
because that's what we're saying, and we bow down.
We
That's what it
genuflect and we
means.
bow.
That's what it means. It means anachnu korim, we bend our knees, umishtachimim, and we bow down.
Yeah.
So we're actually doing what we're saying.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the first paragraph. Very clear, no equivocation. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for making us not like the Goyim, and we recognize Hashem as the only one. Now, let's do the next paragraph. Al Kain.
Therefore,
So the second paragraph is conditional on the first paragraph. Therefore, right? When you say therefore, that means as a result of what I have just said, something else follows. Okay? Al Kain. Therefore, nekaveh,
we shall hope.
we shall hope. Lecha, to you. Our hope is to you. Adonai Eloheinu. Lirot, to see. What are we hoping for? Lirot, to see. Mehera,
Quickly.
speedily. Betiferet uzecha, the glory of your strength. Laha'avir gilulim min haaretz, to remove, what are gilulim?
Sins.
Gilulim.
Planet,
It's the Gilgal.
What'd you say? What'd you say, Hannah?
planet, planets.
No, it doesn't mean
Planet.
planets.
That's a Gil- it's like
It means idolatry.
Ah,
Okay, it means
I thought-
gilulim,
yeah.
the things that roll along.
Yeah.
Okay, it's a bit like the modern Hebrew word for for feces. Right, it's the same sort of idea, right? Lahavir gilulim min haaretz, to remove this idolatry from the earth. The ha'elilim, and the false gods, karot yikaretun. Root of that word.
Correct.
Correct.
The
To-
stoning.
No, karet isn't stoning.
Correct.
Cut off. To cut off. And all the false gods should be well and truly cut off. It's a double expression. Karot
What is
yikaretun.
stoning?
Skila.
Skila, yeah, skila.
The takein olam, to fix the world,
Yeah.
b'malchut Shaddai, with the kingship of Hashem.
Yeah.
Shaddai is another word for Hashem. V'chol b'nei basar, and all humanity, b'nei basar, anyone who's got flesh, right? Anybody, humanity, yikra'u vishmecha, will call in your name. Lehafnot elecha kol rishei aretz. All the evil people in the land will turn to you.
Why are you pointing to me?
It just happened that way. Yakiru, they will recognize you. Veyedu, and they will know. Kol yoshvei tevel, the whole inhabitants of the whole
universe.
world will know and recognize. Ki lecha tichra kol berech, that to you every knee
will
must bend.
will genuflect.
Tishava kol lashon, that every tongue will swear by you. Lefanecha Adonai Eloheinu, before you, Hashem our God, yichra'u v'yipolu, they will bend their knee and they will prostrate themselves. V'lichvod shimcha, and to the glory of your name, yikar yitenu, they will give glory. They will render homage, it says here. It's a good translation. V'kablu chulam, and everybody will accept et ol malchutecha, the yoke of your kingship. V'timloch aleihem, and you will rule over them, meheira, speedily, liolam va'ed, forever and ever. Who are we talking about here? Who are we talking about?
We're talking about the Goyim.
The Goyim. We're
Yes.
talking about the Goyim. It's completely different to the first paragraph. Ki hamalchut shelcha hi, because kingship is yours. Olme ad timloch b'chavod, and forever, leolme, forever, you will reign in glory. Kakatuv b'toratecha, as it is written in your Torah, Adonai yimloch liolam va'ed. Hashem will rule forever. V'ne'ema, and it is said, Lo hibit aven biyag. With this is now we're finished now. That's the end of that. Now we're into Rosh Hashanah here. Let's go back to.
When we don't finish.
That was your favourite prophet saying that, Johnny.
Johnny,
Yeah.
we always said this paragraph.
We're not finished yet. We're not finished yet.
That was your favourite prophet, Johnny,
The
wasn't it?
Ne'emar, and it is said, V'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz, and it will be that Hashem will be the king over all the earth. Vayom hahu, on that day, yiyeh Adonai echad or shmo echad, you will be, Hashem will be one and his name will be one. As Johnny quite rightly says, that is a quote from my favorite sefer from Zechariah.
And this refers to the Shema also.
Okay, so you can so if we had to sum up the first paragraph of Aleinu, what does it say? Thank you, Hashem,
We are different.
for making us different from the Goyim. Second paragraph.
We hope
Therefore, because we are different from the Goyim, it is our job.
make
We
it
are
right.
hoping that eventually
they'll become
the
like
whole world will recognize that Hashem is one. Now we now understand what this prayer is. It is so utterly fundamental that it is perhaps the most important prayer that we actually say. Now, the joke that I told you in the beginning is a funny joke, right? But actually, there's something in it. Aleinu Leshabeach is neglected. We say it at the end. We're taking our talus off. We're not concentrating. I remember. I don't know if Harvey Rosen ever watches these shiurim, but he had a particular thing about Aleinu Leshabeach, and he used to get really upset because he said, we've got 17. I timed it. He said, they take 17 seconds to say the whole of Aleinu. It's impossible. Right. Yeah. So he used to get really upset that people didn't say Aleinu properly. He was quite right. Aleinu needs to be said properly. Now, Rav Bick's idea is really quite revolutionary, because what he's saying is not that, or maybe not just that, we finish off our prayers with a declaration of utter faith and hope for the future of humanity. But when we leave the prayers, what are we doing? Where have we been when we've been saying our prayers? Well, physically, we've been in the shul, right? But where have we been spiritually? With God. So what are we doing when we leave our prayers? We are going away from God, and we are going into the outside world. We're going into the outside world. Yes, Frank?
This is just an extension of what we actually said last week. Because we said last week, when we come to Ashrei Volatzion, it's exactly that. We were saying we were preparing ourselves to take all that out with us anyway.
It was,
So it's
yeah,
logical that this is
it was almost as if Ashrei Uvalet Zion is, I don't want to leave. We just want to do a bit more Kedusha, right? We'll have another Kadosh. We'll have another bit more learning, right? We talked about that being a learning for everybody.
You said that Lambert Seth was clearly the starting point to take away with
Yeah,
you as you
that's
go
right.
into-
And this is, as you say, the continuation of that. But what Rav Bick is saying is that we need to take Aleinu Leshabeach with us when we leave God's presence, because we're going out amongst what? Amongst the goyim.
But logically, that would mean that you wouldn't say it after a mincha, because you're carrying on doing Mari.
Okay, very good, Paul. And let me just say that for the recording. Paul says, well, logically, you wouldn't say it after Mincha if you continue with Mariv. There are places who do not say Aleinu after Mincha if they're going to Daven Mariv straight away for exactly that reason. And in fact, if you go to Yom Kippur, right? You go to Yom Kippur, you do not say Aleinu after Mincha because you go straight into Ne'ilah. So you are quite right, Paul. You should not be saying Aleinu, or perhaps you should not be saying Aleinu if you're going to go straight into Mariv, according to that. So you're very, very correct and very consistent.
That's why we don't say it in Shacharit, it's on Shabbat.
Correct. That's exactly why we don't say it on Shacharit in Shabbat, because we're going into Musaf, but we do say it after Musaf. Okay, and that's, you definitely need it in Kiddush, by the way. So the idea is that Aleinu is such a fundamental prayer that we need to take it with us when we leave the presence of God. So it's really, when I read this, I thought, wow, that's really something amazing, that instead of thinking of it as the end of the prayer, I've done my Shemona Esra, I'll gabble off Ashrei Uvalet Zion if you're lucky, and then I'll, as I'm folding up my talus and speaking to everybody else who wants to, have a bit of you, I'll say Aleinu while I'm doing it, and that's the end of it. No, Aleinu is very important. Now, I remember as a kid, certainly on Shabbos, and I remember when the rabbi, it was Rabbi Gerdes, Zichrono Livracha. You remember him, Johnny? Rabbi Gerdes?
Very well, yeah.
Lovely, lovely man. He was my rabbi in Shrubberies when I was a little boy. I remember him instituting, and I don't know if any of the other United Synagogue members here did that, but he instituted that we all said Aleinu Leshabeach together in unison. Yeah? And the Americans do it as well.
Oh, always.
Yeah. Now, let me before you ask a question, Goldie, I want to tell you something interesting about. You have to remember it. I want to tell you something interesting about saying Aleinu out loud together, and it comes back to our verse that's missing or in brackets. Now then, let's go to that, and then you'll understand what's going on. Now, why is the verse that says Shehem mishtachavim lehevel varik, that they bow down to emptiness and vanity, and they mitpalalim, they pray to El Lo Yoshia, to a God that doesn't save? Why is that missing? Okay, right. So that's another point we'll come to. Why is it missing from the Singer's Prayer Book? Because it was censored. It was censored. It was taken out because the Christians initially, and then the Muslims, but initially the Christians, saw that as an insult. What?
It wasn't very respectful, they thought.
They saw it as an insult to Christianity. We're talking early Christian period, okay? Early Christian period. Let me tell you if I've got an exact sort of time. Okay, before I tell you that, the first time we see it in the daily prayers, remember I said to you that it was very early, 3rd century CE, it's mentioned as being in Rosh Hashanah. But when do we see the first time that it has morphed into a daily prayer? Much later, but still a very old prayer. That is in the early 12th century. is the first time we see it in
Time
the
of the Crusades.
in the time of the Crusades. Yes, we see the Aleinu Leshabeach in the Siddur of the very old Siddurim of the 12th century. So it's a very old prayer. Some say it goes back to Yeshua ben Nun. It certainly goes back to the time of the Gemara, before the time of the Gemara, actually. But it entered into the Siddur at least in the 12th century. Now, what was going on? Philip mentioned the Crusades. What was going on in the 12th, 13th century?
Persecution.
Tremendous Christian, what's the word? Religiosity. Yeah, religiosity of Christianity.
They were at the point that Islam is today.
They were fanatic Christian crusades, right? And they it was seen by them as a slur. Listen to this. This is fascinating. I didn't know this till I looked it up today. There was an apostate Jew. It's always an apostate. Have you noticed? It's always an apostate Jew that caused the trouble.
The guy who went to Cannes now.
The guy.
Israeli went to
the guy that had the whole disputation also in the Middle Ages in France was an apostate Jew, Nicholas Donin. Okay. It's always an apostate. Why is it an apostate Jew? Because they know the soft underbelly. They know where to attack. Anyway, an apostate Jew by the name of Pesach Peter, whoever he was, denounced this sentence as an anti-Christian slur. Listen to this. On the grounds that the word varik, which means emptiness, has the same gematria. Right? This is why it could only be an apostate Jew that could do this. What's the gematria of varik? Work it out, please.
16.
Come on, who can work out the gematrias first? Yes, Frank gets the prize.
How much?
What's it the same as?
316. Now, what is that the same as?
Go
on.
Yeshu.
Yeshu is 316. Very good, Barbara. So this Drek Pesach Peter apostate Jew said that
Yeshu's name, Jesus's nickname was Rick.
So Varik is the same gematria as 316 as Yeshu, right? Now, the fact is, where does this posuk come from? Vahevel Varik doesn't come from Yeshu at all. It comes, of course it was. It comes from the book of Yeshayahu, right? Which was several centuries before Yeshu. And it's so the rabbis proved that they was talking rubbish by showing them Yeshayahu. This is where it comes from. They weren't having it, and it was censored. Now, later on, or more or less just after this, there was another commentary called the Arugat Habosem by somebody called Avraham ben Azriel that made the point that Vahevel Varik has the same gematria as, you'll not get this one. Go on, Barbara. Yeshu v'Mohammed. How brilliant is that? And that's without computers. That is genius, right? So Hevel Varik.
Phil Fango get that one.
Hevel Varik is the same gematria as Yeshu v'Mohammed, right?
Phil
As a
Fango
result of this, the Christian authorities censored that pasuk, and for centuries, probably 6 centuries, maybe 7 centuries, that sentence was not in the Aleinu prayer. And if you look at some old Siddurim, you see a fascinating thing. There is a line missing, an empty line in the Siddur, and what you were meant to do,
To say it silently.
write it in your own handwriting. They couldn't print it, so they left you a line so you could write it in on your own.
When was that, Johnny?
Is that not fascinating?
When was that?
When was that? After the 13th century.
Really?
13th century. Yeah, when printing came out. Printing came out in the 15th century, right? So, yeah, it'd be 1400 and something. Yeah, 15th century. So when the first Sidurim were printed, they left a gap. They left a line out, and you were meant to write it in on your own because they couldn't print it because it was censored. Now, when did it start to come back? Very late on. Very late on. Only really in the, well, let's have a look. In the Singer's Prayer Book, it's still not there, right? Singer's Prayer Book is based on the original Singers. When were the original Singers? Is that, have you got a first edition there?
No.
First edition of Singers, it'll tell you there. When was the first edition? It was late 19th century, I think. 1880 something.
First edition, 1890.
Johnny, Phil Feingold would
I
have
guess
got that gematria.
1890, first edition Singers, certainly wasn't in there. The reason it's not in the modern Singers is because, you know, tradition has become Minhag Anglia. However, in so even in the 2007 fourth edition, which I think is one you've got, the red one, or maybe the green one there. Is yours a fourth edition there? Yeah. So the 2007 fourth edition doesn't have it in, but the 2009 Koren Sachs Siddur does have it in. The Art Scroll. When did Art Scrolls? Okay, but it's still. But it's edited by Jonathan Sachs. That's the point. Anyway, the point being, yeah, you're right, Frank. The point now, when did Art Scroll produce their first Siddur? I'm going to guess and say 1979. Have a look. Somebody in the front of the
1969, Coney Island, I think.
What's the first edition in there?
It says copyright Masora Publications, 1969, Coney Island.
69. Okay.
Coney Island, it came from Coney
69.
Island.
Okay. By
Unbelievable.
1969, it was in brackets. Okay. It was in brackets. It's back in, but it's in brackets. By the time we get to Rinat Yisrael, which is an Israeli publication, and therefore, who cares what the Christian or a Muslim censors
I
think?
think there are a lot of mistakes in
It's got out of brackets and it's back in where it belongs, inside the prayer.
I've got bad news for you, because the 2022 Singers is produced by Koren,
And it's not in.
and it's not in.
Okay, so that's what Frank says. It's become part of Minhag Anglia. Okay, so that's why. Yes, Goldie wanted to ask a question. Sorry, got carried away.
Beis Yaakov, we learned Al Tira. Can you
Okay.
also?
Al Tira is
You don't say that.
because that's not part of the Aleinu prayer. Okay, so it's Al Tira. Al Tira, it says here, Noagim, there are some who have the custom to say after Aleinu, these psukim, it's psukim from Mishlei and Yeshayahu. And again, it's about going out into the world. Al tirami pachad, don't be afraid of fear. Pitom umashet v'rashaim kitavo. Don't worry if you come into contact with evil people. It's a prayer which accompanies you out through the day. So it fits in, but it's not it's not part of the Aleinu prayer.
But that's how we grew up.
Okay, so it's no problem in saying it, Faith. You want to say it, gesundheit. Right. So
Johnny, I would like to say that Phil Feingold would have got that gematria.
no, I just want to say what I want to hear what Johnny's got to say. What do you say, Johnny?
No, it's just a personal thing. Phil Feingold would have got that gematria.
Phil Feingold would have got that gematria immediately. That's
So
right.
finish explaining
If
it.
not making
Right. So now then, somebody mentioned spitting on the ground. Frank, what do you know about spitting on the ground?
That's what you do in front of Christians in
That's what-
Jerusalem.
why it was taken out.
That's one of the things that you don't do in shul, but there are people that do it in shul. Why do they spit? People, if you make Chabad do it, they spit. Yes, now they do it. Chabad do it. They spit on the floor and they rub it with they spit on the floor and they rub their shoe over it like this. You won't be able to see this on Zoom. There you go. Shehem mishtachem v'hel v'rik.
Yeah, that's right.
And then they
They
carry on.
really do
Right?
that.
That's what they do. They still do it. They still do it today. Now,
Now.
why is that?
Every time his name's mentioned. Oh,
Yeah, okay. So why do we do that? Well, it's obvious, isn't it? There's two reasons we do it. What did I tell you Varik was the same
The
gematria
same
as?
Jesus.
Jesus.
Yes.
Right? So when you say the word Varik, they've got in mind Jesus.
Jesus.
And what do we say? Jesus. Right? And then you split on the ground and then you rub it with your shoe into the ground. Now, 1 second. The other reason that they do that, what does the word Rik mean in Hebrew?
Emptiness.
But it's also something else.
Spit.
Spit.
Yes.
Rik is spit. Rik is
Yes.
sputum, right? The word for sputum in Hebrew is Rik. So it all fits very nicely. So what they used to do, Frank, was instead of saying the pasuk that they weren't allowed to say, because it was censored,
It's bad.
they would spit on the ground,
Mhm.
right? And everybody would know that when you spit on the ground, you were thinking the pasuk, Hevel Varik, Yeshu.
And
Right?
Muhammad.
Now then, what's that got to do with what I told you earlier on with Rabbi Gerdis and all you lot that say it out loud? Why do we say it out loud? Well, how about this? The censors knew what it meant and they took it out. So you weren't allowed to say it. So they used to send officers, policemen, into shul
Yeah.
to make sure that you didn't say it. So what happened was,
Like in Iran today.
they insisted, these inspectors, that the prayer of Aleinu was said out loud and in unison so that they could make sure that we did not say that pasuk that we're not allowed to say. And that is the origin of saying it out loud. And that is the reason why in more non-United synagogue type of places, they do not say it out loud, because saying it out loud was instituted by the Goyim who sent inspectors to make sure they weren't saying that. So instead, what they do is they say it for sure. And in certain circles, the only ones I know that still do it today are Chabad. There may be others. They actually
include that extra puzzle then.
They do include it.
If you're saying it out loud,
Yeah. Well, if you're saying it out loud,
then you shouldn't be saying.
then, well, if you want to kowtow to the inspectors, yeah, you could argue, Charlie, that by saying it out loud and saying that pasuk, that's, two fingers up to the inspectors. So you could argue that. I mean, when you say it out loud in the United Synagogue in London, do you say that pasuk? No, because it's not in your singer's prayer book. I don't remember whether we said it in Shrubberies when we said it out loud, but I suspect we didn't. I suspect we didn't because we also used a singer's prayer book. Yes, Charlie.
Faded out and saying it out. You didn't towards the end.
You don't now? They don't now? What about in Stanmore, Frank?
It's not said now, but I know that Jeffrey Schisser originally in Kenton actually wrote music, and he taught the whole congregation used to sing the first paragraph,
Including the Hevel Varik? Including Shehem Mishtach? No, not including that. Okay, so anyway, isn't that not a fascinating piece of history
Yes.
about Aleinu Leshabeach? Okay.
Why did Rabbi Gerdis reinstate it, Johnny?
Shh, 1 second. I want to hear what Johnny's got to say, please. Go on.
Why did Rabbi Gerdis reinstate it, saying it loud?
Why did he? I don't know. I was only a kid. I never asked him. But it was definitely reinstated by
Did they
him.
still say it loud?
I don't know. I've not been to Shrubberies for donkey's years, so I couldn't answer that question.
Okay.
We certainly didn't say it out loud in the Stiebel, that I can tell you.
curiosity then, go back to Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, when you came to Aleinu, did you sing that out or did you just done it silently and put through it?
No, it was, well, in the silent Shemona Esrei, it was said silently. In the
Aleinu.
yeah, yeah.
Why is that now? It's logical then that we actually sing that because we're doing it out loud.
Yeah, but we're in Rosh Hashanah, we don't sing out loud every day, do we? We don't,
For every piece, but why have got Aleinu? A piece that's written and coming we're all saying it out loud.
Yeah, well, that's how it should be. On Rosh Hashanah, And if you want to say it out loud, Gesundheit, say it out loud every day. The point is that the Aleinu prayer is a prayer which is meant to accompany us out of the shul, out of the presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and into the outside world. Now, just as another interesting thing, in the daily prayers, the Aron Kodesh is closed when we say Aleinu. When we do it on Yom Kippur and on Rosh Hashanah, by the way, on Yom Kippur, what do we say on Yom Kippur?
You split it up, won't
Yeah. Yes. Very good. Well done. You split it up. There's the first paragraph is separate from the second paragraph. They don't run together, whereas on Rosh Hashanah they do. So on the Yomim Noroim in the Chazarat Hashatz, the Aron Kodesh is open and closed. When do we close it? We close it before Anachnu Korim. Why do we close it before Anachnu Korim? What comes immediately before Anachnu Korim, except in the Simchas prayer book? That's why the Aron Kodesh is closed before we bow down, because we don't want the Aron Kodesh open when we say Shehei Mishtachvim Mevo Varik.
Yeah.
So we close it in the same way as we say Maaseh Elohim, it's open. Maaseh
Eloheinu.
Maaseh Enosh, it's closed. Same idea. So even after the censorship, it momentarily was closed. Why? Same reason that they left a line blank. So that when they closed the Aron Kodesh, you think, hang on a minute, why are they closing the Aron Kodesh? Oh, I know, because there's a verse here that I should be saying, but I'm not allowed to say it because it's censored, so you think it. So even...
There is a bit stiff when it's closed as well. Not just closing open.
We say Shalom.
Okay, so yeah, but that's not quite as offensive as saying Midbalim Melasheh. So the idea was that when the Aron Kodesh was closed during the Aleinu of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the idea was that even after the censorship, they continued to close it so that it would be a relic and a reminder of what they've censored. Okay, and it's just so fascinating, the history of the tefillos. Now, there was a chap in 1656 called Menashe ben Yisrael. Sounds like he's probably some kind of Sephardi guy. He reported that the Sultan Selim, presumably Selim II, it says here, having read the uncensored text of Aleinu in the Turkish translation, declared, truly, this prayer is sufficient for all purposes. There is no need of any other prayer. Now, I think that having learned what we've learned today about Aleinu Leshabeach, I would concur with that. This is a absolutely fundamental prayer. You'll vote for that? Just say Aleinu. yeah, just say Aleinu. Okay.
What does
one second, Johnny. One second. Yes, Barbara.
Why do all the supposedly from people start taking off the telesim and chatting to the people, not saying it properly?
For the same reason that the herring is chopped up into little pieces, right? They shouldn't. They shouldn't be taking it. No, you're absolutely right. Because they don't know what they're saying. They don't know what they're saying. They haven't been to this shiur, yeah, you're 100% right. Listen, I remember. Listen, we've all been there. I remember one particular occasion. I went to a wedding, a Hasidic wedding. I used to get invited to all of these things. No, I used to get invited to all of them because I had a lot of Hasidic patients, and they all wanted to be, Makir Tov, invited me to. Did I want to go? I definitely didn't want to go, but my wife used to make me go because they used to say, no, they've invited you. You have to go and you have to say Mazel Tov and you have to show your face, right?
Did she go too?
No, she didn't go. She wasn't invited. Women only. Women weren't invited. So I used to have to go to these things, and I remember, and I always did Daven Mincha beforehand, right, or in the middle or something, or Mariv or something. And I remember going to one particular one, and it was always the same, but this one really just got up my nose. The guy davening for the Amud, he gabbled it off, and you know how people who just davening, and I said to him afterwards, I said, do you know what? It's a good job HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the words, because there's no way he could have figured out what you were saying just then. And it's a part of the same thing, Bob.
The big problem with saying Kaddish.
That's what I just said.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can't do it.
You can't get it all in.
Not possible.
No.
So we should be saying Aleinu Leshabeach with great kavanah.
Yes.
We should be saying it slowly. And Harvey Rosen will be very happy to me here to say this. It should take no less than a minute to say Aleinu Leshabeach properly. If you're saying it in less than a minute, and not you, if we are saying it in less than a minute, we're not saying it properly.
Why did you mention Harvey?
Because were you not listening before, Philip?
No, I was.
No, you weren't.
Saying, yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Harvey has this thing about Aleinu, and he said, people do a 17-second Aleinu and you can't say it properly, and he was very upset about it. And he was quite...
Johnny.
Yes, Johnny.
What does your friend Zachariah mean by the last pasuk?
Okay, so V'ne'emar.
What does it mean?
Johnny's question was, what is the ultimate of Zechariah? What's he saying? V'ne'emar, it says in pasuk, V'haya Hashem, and Hashem will be Lemelech, he will be the king, Al Kol Haaretz, over all the earth. It's the end of days. It is the prophecy of how it will be at the end of days, when Mashiach comes, whatever that means. Vayom Hahu, on that day, Yiyeh Hashem Echad, God will be one, Ushma Echad, and his name will be one. In other words, the whole world will recognize that there is only one God, and that will be, as we said earlier on, Lecha Tichra Kol Berech. To you, every knee will bend. In other words, there will only be one God. On the day, or at the end of days, it will be, peace will be on the earth. Everybody will agree that there is only one God. And that is the prophecy of Zechariah. We're still waiting. But that is that's what it means.
Okay.
So,
Can you finish it?
You keep that one, Gold. Gold is really upset about this Altira. So
What that finishes off saying is, no prayer more eloquently expresses the dual nature of the Jewish people, its singular history as the nation chosen to be God's witnesses on the earth, and its universal aspiration for the time when all inhabitants there will recognize the God in whose image we are all.
absolutely perfect. Let me read that out for the benefit of the recording and the Zoom, because they probably wouldn't have heard you. Rabbi Sachs sums it up and says, and this is basically, if we had to sum up what we've said in this shiur for the last hour or so, no prayer more eloquently expresses the dual nature of the Jewish people, its singular history as a nation chosen to be God's witness on the earth. That's paragraph 1 of the Aleinu. And its universal aspiration for the time when all the inhabitants of the earth will recognize the God in whose image we are formed. And that is the second paragraph of Aleinu. Now, we've got a few minutes left. She wants to go. Hang on, Johnny, I've got to do this.
No, in the Chabad shul, they sing Al Tira. I don't know if it's the Sephardi people there or the Chabad people.
Well,
but they sing
Al
it.
Tira. I've never heard it sung.
They sing it, yeah.
You sing it? The Americans apparently sing it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Wait. Listen, I have to satisfy my audience. And Gold is getting really upset here. Okay. Al Tira mi pachad. Pitom umishoat rishaim kitavo. It's from the pasuk from Mishlei. Don't be afraid from the machinations of the evil people you will come across. Utsa eitza v'tufa dabru davar v'lo yakum ki Immanuel Yeshayahu says, I'm going to give you advice. Dabru davar velo yakum. Speak a word if it's not fulfilled. Ki imanu Hashem is with me. Again, we're going out into the world. Va'ad zikna, until old age. Anihu, I am he. Va'ad seva, until a ripe old age. Ani esbol, I will suffer. Ani asiti, va'ani esa, I have done and I will carry. Va'ani esbol, and I will suffer. This is HaKadosh Baruch Hu saying, I will suffer on your behalf. Va'amaleit, and I will save you. That is a pasuk, by the way, from Yeshayahu, which has been appropriated
By Coney Island.
not by Coney Island, by the Christians, because they ascribe this to being Jesus, who says, I will suffer in order that you don't have to suffer. So that is one of the psukim that over the centuries has caused us a bit of difficulty. So what you're saying when you say these psukim, Gold, and that's mine, what you're saying when you say these psukim is that it's again, you're saying your belief and your faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu as you go out into the world with your Aleinu Leshabeach prayer. So in summary, the Aleinu Leshabeach prayer is a very, very important prayer. Now, let's go back to Yoshua just to finish off. Yoshua may or may not have written it, probably didn't, but he might have done, because what was going on when he crossed the Jordan? They were leaving the Midbar. They were leaving the security of what? A relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar had Moshe Rabbeinu, miracles, man, the Be'er, all the stuff, you know, all the other miracles that were going on. They were looked after directly by the hand of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They were going to go into Eretz Yisrael, cross the Jordan, and what happened then? What was their job then? Their job then was to live a more natural and less supernatural life. Their job was to transition, to use a modern expression, to transition into a people who would have a natural existence. And in order to have that, this prayer would have been very handy. So even if Yoshua never wrote this, whoever decided that he might have written it, actually, you know, maybe that was the reason why they thought that Yoshua might have written it, because it would fit very nicely for the transition, like it fits the transition from our prayers in the presence of God out into the big wide world. It fits the transition from the Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar, as it were, in the presence of God, into the big wide world of crossing the Jordan. Yes, Frank.
The rabbis have done is taken that back even further, because in our after we say the Shiur in the mornings, or actually finishing off with we're actually taking the end of that and having it on at the end of the Shiur anyway.
Okay, so let me just say that so that everyone can hear. Frank points out that at the end of Shirat Hayam in Davening, we say at the end of the Shiur actually finishes with the words. There's a Shiur here. That's Emes V'Yatziv, that's before that. So the Shiur finishes with the words, Lishpot et ha'reisav ha'ita l'Hashem ha'melucha. Actually, that's not true. That's from Ovadia. The Shiur finishes, Kivasas that's the end of the Shiur. We then add in 3 different psukim from 3 different places. Ki Hashem HaMelucha, because Hashem has it too. Hashem is the kingship. Umoshel bagoyim, and rules over the goyim. That's from Tehillim. Wait. Va'alu moshiim b'Har Tzion, and the saviors will go up to Har Tzion, lishpot et Har Esav, to judge the mountain of Esav. In other words, to judge the goyim. V'haita l'Hashem HaMelucha, and again, God's kingship will be there. And then Zechariah, so it's not just Zechariah, it's those 3 psukim. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. in the singers. We don't say that. That's Minhag Anglia, not just Minhag Anglia, but it's Minhag. Various Minhagim have to add Shema Yisrael on top, which again is another declaration of Hashem's oneness and faith.
Consistent with what you were saying about crossing into Canaan at the end. But it go with the rabbis just taking that back to a previous crossing in the
So we're crossing it over the Yam Suf, and we're going actually into the Midbar and taking it with us. Yeah, that would fit.
Johnny,
This should please Goldie, because in the 46th edition, Al Tirah does not appear at all. In the 2022 edition, it says some congregations add.
Okay, there you go. So we've progressed. Minhag Anglia has progressed from 1946 to 2022. Okay, before I stop the recording, first of all, any questions on Zoom? Yes, Warren.
You'll probably disagree. I actually learned last week.
Please quiet. I want to hear what Warren's got to ask.
I learned last week that Joshua wrote the first paragraph, but the second paragraph was written by someone called Akna, which is the first letter of the first three words of the second paragraph.
Okay, let's have a look. Okay, Nekaver.
They take the first letter, the first three words.
Avner. Okay, could be. Yeah, certainly the first paragraph is ascribed to Joshua. That is correct. Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, Frank.
Anything significant in the fact that in Tefilah, certainly we had to work the letter Vav.
Vav. Yeah. There is a nusach which says V'al Kain. I don't think it's particularly significant. The Ver adds it to. I don't think you need it because Al Kain by definition is because therefore, so it has to be connected to the previous thing. Don't think there's any great significance. Okay.
Whoa, one more thing.
Yes, Faye.
Okay, mine is not a question. Mine is a comment.
Okay. Go on.
I have found that I know I'm not a slow reader, but I read every word. And I have never gotten past the first paragraph before they're up to V'namar v'Haya Hashem Ekam. Never. And when I was saying Kaddish, nowhere, ever, maybe at the Karbach shul, in a Karbach minyan, but never in any shul, and definitely never in our shul in Netanya.
So there you are. You're in favor of the Harvey Rosen
I'm
school of thought.
absolutely in favor. 1 minute. Give us 1 minute. Finish, like not 20 seconds to finish like the whole thing. It may take me 20 seconds to finish. If you read every word, even reading every word quickly, but you hear every word in your head that you say so that you know what
That's why I said it should take no less than 1 minute. Right, Frank?
I agree. You've got my vote on
when you're
that.
in the Omid, they're all going to be going, no.
All right, well,
You just point to
read
me,
every word and you won't have to be no. Read the words. Don't, know. Did you know what you just read? Can you tell me over in your own words what you just read?
Yeah,
okay,
well,
and
I think
nobody will be able
that goes
to
for
do
a lot
that.
of the prayers. Faye, you're quite right, but this is a very important one, and you're 100% right. Okay, Laila Tov, everyone.
Laila Tov, bye-bye.
Thank
you,
good morning.
Julie.
Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.